Hi, I'm Greg Canning, and in this video I'll introduce you to one of Australia's radical feminist icons. Did you know that self-declared radical feminists hold senior academic and teaching positions in virtually every Australian university? Radical feminists are gender ideologues whose core dogma revolves around the belief that all men oppress all women through so-called patriarchal institutions. They blame men and maleness for all that is considered wrong with the world. In brief, they teach the hatred of men, and for radical feminists, men are considered the enemy. The question I want to pose to you in this video is, should such gender bigotry be allowed to continue and thrive in contemporary Australian tertiary institutions? And if not, what can we or should we do about it?
As they grow old, they all lose their charms in the end. All men are wankers, said Christabel Pankhurst. Women are a girl's best friend.
That was Sheila Jeffries, an outspoken tenured professor at the prestigious University of Melbourne, as she appeared in the 2006 BBC documentary Angry Women. Such overt male hatred in a publicly broadcast documentary is viewed as completely normal and acceptable in contemporary Australia and in academia. Jeffries has a long history of hate speech and anti-male bigotry in her writings and public statements, which, if they were directed at any other demographic, say a religious group or a racial group, she would be called to show cause why her tenure as a professor should not be terminated, and would be liable to charges under anti-discrimination legislation. But Jeffries has not been censored by her employer or the Australian community. In fact, for years she's been allowed to indoctrinate impressionable students into radical feminist dogma without challenge. Students who later come to take on positions in the public service, private and non-government organisations, and in politics, where such indoctrination forms the basis of their views and actions. Jeffries is proudly promoted by the University of Melbourne as an expert in areas related to feminism and gender studies. So let's see what else Jeffries has had to say. Every woman who lives with or fucks a man helps to maintain the oppression of her sisters and hinders our struggle. This is certainly consistent with her firm belief that men maintain power over women by the act of sexual intercourse, and that heterosexuality is therefore bad for women. In her book Anti-Climax, she states, "The demolition of heterosexual desire is a necessary step on the route to women's liberation." Of course, heterosexual desire is predominantly attributed to men, whose sexuality radical feminists have continued to demonise. In The Lesbian Heresy, she states, "Both heterosexuality as a political system and sexual violence as a social control depend upon the construction of heterosexual desire. By heterosexual desire, I mean the eroticised power difference which originates in hetero relations but can also exist in same-sex union." While she admits to the power differences in the same-sex relationships, you will never find Jeffries quoting the data that shows that lesbians as a group have the highest level of intimate partner violence. Clearly, power, dominance and violence occurs in human relationships, not just heterosexual ones, as Jeffries would have us believe. Further, she has stated, "The act which men commonly perform on prostituted women is penis in vagina sexual intercourse. There is nothing natural about that act." Perhaps Sheila has never had the benefit of high school biology or access to the Discovery Channel, but she has consumed much radical feminist rhetoric. Our definition of a political lesbian is a woman-identified woman who does not fuck men. Men are the enemy. Yes, in Jeffries' bigoted world, men are the enemy, just as for other types of extremists, Muslims or Aboriginals are the enemy.
Now, Millett delivered a scathing feminist critique of this self-serving masculine folly. She showed that the subordination of women is powerfully constructed through and in acts of penile penetration of women. And she pointed out that sex is not natural, but politically formed out of and in support of male domination. But she, however, defines the term politics as referring to power-structured relationships, arrangements whereby one group of persons is controlled by another, and patriarchy she identifies as one of these. And she states that the situation between the sexes is one of dominance and subordination, which has created a most ingenious form of interior colonization, that is, inside the head, meaning that women often cannot see they are oppressed because they are fully acculturated to that oppression and may even defend the interests of the men who are their masters. She published a memoir about a lesbian relationship she had after her marriage in 1977, Sita, in which she details her emotional suffering in that unequally balanced affair. Now, male readers were often discomforted by this book, and it caused one of her thesis advisors, someone called George Stade at Columbia University, to remark, "Reading the book is like sitting with your testicles in a nutcracker." I think thesis advisors should not be allowed to have such biases, it has to be said.
Those excerpts were taken from Jeffrey's lecture celebrating the radical dogma of Kate Millett, something she clearly holds dear to her heart. And don't forget, Jeffries is also a contributor to the male eugenics discussion group called radicalhub.com. A university professor not put off by a comments policy that allows only women-born women to contribute and that describes men as carnivorous and necrophiliac. What should we do? If you believe this woman is unsuitable due to her radical beliefs to be indoctrinating students, you need to speak out. If you're a student, look out for her public events, attend them, question her directly, or respond to her statements in the media pointing out her bigotry. If you know students who take her courses, ask them, how does she paint men currently? Is it consistent with the community's attitudes and the university's code of conduct? If not, complain to the university. But don't remain silent about the likes of Jeffries. If you encounter them, challenge them. Highlight their sexism and misandry so that everyone can see. Radical feminists whinge that they are marginalised and ignored, but of course this is not true. They are listened to closely in the halls of power, and there is a fear of offending them by questioning their dogma. Break free of this. Let the ordinary folk see how bigoted and corrupt they are. That way they will be their own downfall.
All men are wankers, said Christabel Pankhurst. Women are a girl's best friend.
If you would like to contact me with details of the activities of any feminists in your area, please write to me at gregcanning@gmail.com. Bye for now.